we're back.
Hey there.
Hello, hello. Happy Saturday to you. We're recording on Saturday now.
Yeah, how's your morning been?
Fantastic. The weather's really pretty here right now. So it's like in the mid 70s or something. It's like really beautiful and sunny. It's like warm and I don't know. I keep saying I think I'm going to start cold plunging though in the Intracoastal Waterway because it's right here. We're on the water.
Yeah.
And I love cold plunging so much. It
Mm.
is like so good for my nervous system. There's something about it. I don't know that I've ever discovered anything that regulates my nervous system as well as that like hot cold. So I used to at home I have an infrared sauna. And so I use the infrared sauna and then I would go fill up my bathtub and put ice in my bathtub and then I would cold plunge into my bathtub. It was amazing. Here I don't have a sauna, but it gets pretty warm, especially if I've been out jogging a little. So then, sorry, Henson's got a lot to say today, guys. So then when I'm out jogging, then I can come back and I can get in the water, which even though it's warm outside, the temperature of the water is still pretty cold. So I'm looking forward to that. How about you?
Yeah,
How's your week?
it's been excellent. I'm getting over, I'm getting a little bit over a cold kind of thing. But it's been excellent. So, when I get sick, I don't have to go to work, so that's kind of good. And then like, so so
Advantages
although
of
I
getting
exactly, and it's like it's funny, I don't know, like breath work has been like my favorite thing, but Um, no, it's interesting you bring up cold plunging. I just started getting into it. Actually, on Sunday, I'm gonna audition at this like sauna cold plunge spot to teach like an integrative class in this with the sauna and the cold plunge, and and breath work and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's been on my mind and like just how like I just took a bath this morning and I remember I woke up, I was coughing. It like moved from my nose to my chest. So it was like I was like coughing this morning and then I just got in, like, the hot tub, basically, I just put on, like, hot water and Epsom salt and just sat in there and, just, like, how it just kinda, like, calmed everything, so, yeah,
true.
water is healing for sure, like, daily interaction with water is, like, ugh, cannot be taken for granted.
No, water's amazing. I mean, drinking water, being in water, all the different kinds of water, cold water, hot water. Like water is just really healing for humans, I think. It's just like something that we naturally just, you know, I mean, our bodies are made up of like 80% water. So I think like naturally we just really gravitate towards water and it is so good for us.
Hmm, but well, there was a couple things that were on my mind too that, I don't know, that I thought we could talk about. Today, we have to have, like, a little bit of a shorter episode, and I know we had mentioned it before, but maybe, if you had some time and space, we could, like, talk a little bit more about Swami Satchidananda, like, the person, his history, uh, sort of yeah, like, what he means to you and what that might mean for the future, what, like I hate when people, like, try to represent the dead, but just be like, what what guidance do you think he would give if he was around today, et cetera, that, maybe we could dig into?
I don't think you have to represent the dead, but I do think that when people are raised by people, they carry a legacy and a
Yeah.
wisdom directly from their ancestors. And so, just like our grandparents give us so much wisdom and we carry that forward with us, I do feel like Swami Satchidananda did the same thing for me and my generation. And so he brought us so much wisdom. He left us with so much. Like he was really one of the things I love about him was he was very tech savvy and he was always way ahead of his time as far as technology. And he really like drew people to him who were very tech savvy. So we have like thousands and thousands of hours of video, audio recordings. He was really into that stuff. So like um one of the things that I thought he was so cool about is he set up a camera on his deck when we were building the Lotus Temple and it recorded the, photos of the temple every single day. And so we
Mm.
have this incredible recording of how the temple got built because he was just like that's the way his mind worked, was he just really loved that stuff. And I just found out he had, like, this system in his house that was, like, basically, you know how we all have Alexa and Google Home and stuff like that? He actually had someone come in and build a system in his house like that back in, like, the late '90s. And he had a smart home back in the late '90s, which is so
Mm.
cool because 'cause we're talking about somebody who was born, like, I'm gonna get this messed up because I always confuse his birth date with my grandfather's, um, but I think it was somewhere around 1918, 19 something like that. Because my grandfather, I think, was born, yeah, I get their birth dates confused.
It it says 1914. It
Thank
says
you.
December 22nd, 1914.
Yes, I knew December 22nd, but my grandfather was born in 1918, so I always get those dates confused. So you're thinking about somebody who was born, right, in India in 1914 and grew up in India in 1914, and yet somehow he was always just, like, really into technology and industry. So he was born into this really religious family. There were many great gurus and teachers that came from his lineage, and his parents were constantly hosting, um, religious people and spiritual leaders and, teachers and everything in their home all the time. So growing up, that was just really a part of who he was. And we have lots of fun stories. Like, he has a great biography, and there's lots of fun stories from when he was growing up. Um, when we were kids, we actually did this thing where we acted them out, and we have video of us acting out the stories of his life. It's really cute. And
Oh,
that's when I was going to school with Rivers Cuomo and Liev Schreiber. So they're in some of the videos. It's really fun. We have these, like, really early
mm.
acting of Liev Schreiber in these videos. Anyway, so he grew up in this family and he was very religious. And even early on, he really had, like, a spiritual bent to him. But he was just like anybody of his time. He was supposed to grow up and get married and have a job and have a family and all of that. And so he grew up, he got married very young, he went to school. We do have one photo. If you go to SwamiSatchidananda.org, I think is the website, you actually can see a photo of his wife. I think it's the only photo we have of her. He had 2 children, and he was just, like, doing the householder thing. He worked in kind of the film industry. He grew up in the south of India, so he was in Tamil Nadu. And he was also really into, engineering and technology, um and so his brain was always really primed for that kind of, forward-thinking, creative, modern, just way of being,
Mm. Yeah.
even for his time. However, at some point, and this part is a little unclear in his biography, originally it was said that his wife died. However, later on, there seemed to be some consideration that perhaps his wife left him. It's unclear what is the actual, you know, official version, I think, at this
Mm.
point.
Mhm.
But basically, I think the belief now is that maybe his wife left him, which
Mm.
was very traumatic. And of course, his family all said she died because wives don't leave husbands back then.
Mm.
And we don't really know a lot about her, right? There wasn't a lot of information that was passed down about his wife. We just have a few stories about that time period of his life. But he did have 2 children. So apparently, when this happened, he just had kind of like a breakdown and just kind of lost it and was like, what
Mm.
is the meaning of anything? What am I doing with my life? Kind of freaked out and just left his kids with his mom.
Mm.
And ironically went and worked in an orphanage, taking care of children while his kids were being raised by his mom. I think his kids had feels about that later on in life, but they got over it, I guess, eventually. Uh, so This became like the start of his journey of like really trying to figure out like what the meaning of life was, what he was doing with his life. And so he went on this journey and he started like going from ashram to ashram, teacher to teacher, really searching and trying to figure out like his purpose was. He studied with Aurobindo a little. I think he traveled to also Ramana Maharshi's ashram, I think. So eventually he ends up with Chidbhavananda up in North India, and that's where he takes pre-sannyas. So he takes the pre-sannyas,
What does that
and
mean?
so pre-sannyas means this is before you become a swami or a monk. And being a swami is sort of like being a priest. Probably more people are familiar with priests. You take similar vows of chastity, I guess, poverty, um, obedience, things like that. Although I don't think they were framing it like that in India at the time. That was not really their language. But it was
Mm,
similar things, right? You're giving up your life to serve God and to really pursue this path. It's interesting. Swamis wear orange robes generally because the color orange is supposed to represent fire and it's supposed to represent the burning up of your ego. And swamis, that's the whole purpose of their life on earth, is to really,
mm,
have a very active path of burning up that ego. So he takes pre-sannyas with Chidbhavananda, but doesn't actually stay with him, but he's studying under him. Then he meets Master Shivananda of Rishikesh. And when he meets Master Shivananda, he's like, okay, this is my teacher. This is who I'm supposed to be with. So he ends up taking sannyas with Master Shivananda. Many of the great teachers that came to the West later on, or that we're really familiar with in the yoga world, actually, many descendants came from Master Shivananda, which is really interesting. He was very influential in how yoga was then transmitted to the West.
mm.
So Swami
I have a,
Satchidananda, what?
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
So, what gives a person the title master? Or
I
is it
think he was
like,
just a master of his teachings or a master of yoga. It's interesting that they chose master. I think also Swami Shivananda is correct.
yeah,
But for whatever reason, his particular students started referring to him as master because he was a master of the yogic path.
gotcha.
And he did a lot of writing. So if you want to read Shivananda's stuff, Shivananda was this like really big, tall, robust guy. We have some old videos of him. You can YouTube Swami Shivananda. And he had this big booming voice and he spoke like almost in like short phrases. Like he would have like when he would speak, it wasn't like this lecture of stories or things like that. So much of it was just like pronouncements of like, be good, do good, be kind, be compassionate, stop not
Mm,
until the goal is reached. Like all of this really, really just very powerful, but his way of speaking was like in these short little phrases. So I think so Swami Satchidananda was with Master Shivananda, but he was only there, I think, for a few short years, actually, in the presence of Master Shivananda at the ashram. And during that time, one of the unique things that happened was Master Shivananda, everybody would shave their head,
mm.
all of his sannyasins. But for some reason, he told Swami Satchidananda not to shave his head. He said his hair was so beautiful. And he had
It
this
really
beautiful
is.
long black hair and he had this beard. And he said, don't shave your head. So already when he was there, I think Master Shivananda realized that he was not going to follow in the path of Divine Life Society, that he was
Mm,
going to go out and do something else. There was a greater purpose for what he was doing. So so Master Shivananda started sending him out into the world to start teaching. And originally he was just out there representing Divine Life. He was representing his guru, Master Shivananda, and he would just travel around the world. And so he ended up in Sri Lanka and had, I think, started a center in Sri Lanka. That's where some of his first disciples showed up. There's a lovely, lovely woman. She's since passed, but her name was Sohini, and she's recognized in our organization as really being like his first actual disciple. and follow Swami Satchidananda, and I think maybe she worked as like a secretary and stuff for him early on. Then he ends up going to Hong Kong. He ends up in Europe. When he goes to Hong Kong, he meets the Hari Leelas, who also became very instrumental in helping to finance a lot of the work that he did around the world, and certainly building of Lotus Temple in Virginia.
Mm.
And so he started gathering followers or students of his own, really, who were attracted to him because, again, his teaching style was very different than Master Shivananda. Master Shivananda was like this really powerful guy that was just speaking like in these like, again, and he was very, there wasn't a lot of wiggle room with Shivananda. He was like, you know, stay on this path and be dedicated and whereas Swami Satchidananda was speaking more towards like exposing yoga to a Western audience and recognizing like Western audiences weren't going to be able to hear arise, awake, stop not until the goal was reached. They needed to maybe hear some parables. They needed to have more instruction. They wanted longer lectures. So he started going around teaching in this style, and it became more and more popular. Then apparently I think he was in France, if I remember correctly. Again, I did not prep for this. I'm just trying to remember everything from my brain. So, but his whole bio is on his website. So if you want to go and, fact check me, you can go on the bio.
Yeah.
So he goes over there and he is making this film called, I want to say it was like called Chappaqua or something like that. So this guy, Conrad Rooks, is making this film about him. And Conrad Rooks was friends with Peter Max. And somehow they decided that Swami Satchidananda had to come to New York
Mm.
because they really felt like Americans and people in the US needed to hear what he was saying.
Mm.
So he comes to New York. It's supposed to just be for a short visit. He comes to New York. Peter Max gathers all these people. Peter Max is a very famous artist from the 60s. He was part of that pop art culture similar to Andy Warhol. And around that same time, I'm sure many of you have seen his art. He did a lot of work for like MTV and like just a lot of pop culture stuff throughout his career. So Peter Max invites all these people to his house, and Swami Satchidananda comes to speak. And when they hear him speak, they're like, he can't go back to India. He can't go back to Europe. We need him here. So they basically pass around a hat and gather up enough money. Again, these guys weren't making a lot of money back then, Peter Max was just like starving artist still and doing some cool stuff, but wasn't what he is today.
Mm.
And so they pass around this hat and they all put together their money so they can convince him to stay and rent a place. And so he ends up staying, I think, for a couple months at that point. Eventually, he does go back to India to,
Mm.
gather up some stuff and wrap up his affairs or whatever, but only with the promise that he'll come back. And so they're like, no, you now belong to us. You got to come back. So he originally was like, okay, that's fine. Like, this is great. I'm going to start a Divine Life Center in New York City and with
Mm.
these people. Well, by then, Vishnu Devananda, also a disciple of Swami Shivananda, had come to the West as well and had landed in New York City. And he was a little bit more of an official representative of Divine Life Society. So basically, they kind of split off and they were like, okay, Shivananda gave him, the okay to go start Divine Life Society under Shivananda Ashram title in the West. So when Swami Satchidananda comes, like a year after Vishnu Devananda and wants to start a Divine Life Center, they're like, no, Vishnu Devananda is starting a Divine Life Center in New York
Mm.
City, and it's going to be called Shivananda, you know, yoga ashram or whatever.
Yeah.
And um, so Swami Satchidananda has to do something else. So we actually have the correspondence that he wrote back and forth about this whole process and what was going on and how he wanted to come find, open a Divine Life Society. So they said, okay, well, we got to do something else. So remembering back to his days of studying with Sri Aurobindo, I remember this idea of integral yoga, like this idea that all yoga could be integrated into like one path and we could integrate everything. So he chooses the name Integral Yoga, and we found our first center on the Upper West Side in New York City. And that was pretty much like the beginning of the organization.
Mm.
This was back in, he landed in 1965, I believe. And then they officially founded the center on 13th Street in New York City, where Quentin and I met back in 1970. They bought that building with the help of Alice Coltrane, who was the widow of John Coltrane.
Yeah.
Apparently, when John died, she went into a Great Depression and was really struggling and didn't know what to kind of do with herself. And she ended up coming to one of these meetings where Swami Satchidananda was there and heard him speak, and it just really spoke to her heart. And she started following Swami Satchidananda, traveled back and forth to India with him, and then actually did the famous Carnegie Hall concert in order to raise money so that we could buy the Institute in New York City. Well, those were kind of like our early days. Then we kind of expanded and we started building centers all around the world, and people were like coming and flocking to Swami Satchidananda. By this time, he had opened Woodstock. He was the, speaker at Woodstock, and he opened Woodstock. And a lot of people attribute the success of Woodstock, especially the fact that there was no violence and so much peace and everything, to partially the way that that was opened with this beautiful message of peace and love. And then we opened a ashram in Connecticut. It was so cool. We had this big old building. If I remember correctly, it used to belong to like maybe the Mars family or some candy bar family, if I remember correctly. So they own this like big, huge, it was like one of those big old New England
Mm.
mansions.
Mm.
So we bought this mansion and it was kind of pink. It was so fun. It was like this big, enormous pink mansion. And they bought that and everybody moved into this mansion. And like people were like putting up sheets and they were all sleeping in the same rooms. And it was really like this tight knit community where everybody was there together. And at this time, they founded the Integral Yoga School, which a year after the Integral Yoga School was founded, my family moved to Connecticut. And that's when I first started going to school there at the Integral Yoga School, which I think I told you guys about a little bit in my bio.
Yeah.
So then Swami Satchidananda's real work, I think, kind of started after we founded Connecticut. He started doing interfaith services. He was traveling around the world. Eventually, before he passed, he won, he was awarded the Utant Award. It was, I think, awarded to Nelson Mandela the year before that. Dalai Lama had gotten this award, and it was the Utant Peace Award. Uh,
Mm.
he, was renowned around the world. He had a huge influence on, again, he was really into media and popular culture. So a lot of like musicians and artists and all this stuff were really drawn to him. The Rascals, Felix Cavalieri from the Rascals was one of his followers. The supermodel Iria Liano, who then became a great artist, was one of his followers. Just a lot of people. He was on, Larry King once was interviewed and said, they asked him who was one of the like most profound people he interviewed, or the interview he remembers the most. And it was actually Gurudev's interview Swami Satchidananda's interview that he quoted, which was so cool.
Mm. Wow.
So again, this is 60s, 70s, yoga is kind of booming, but different than it is now. It was very like alternative culture, and people were kind of, dropping out of culture and becoming yogis. And of course, there were like communes coming up. The ashram was very different than a commune in the sense of like, yes, there was a lot of communal living, but it was really like a spiritual place where you were supposed to like renounce your physical belongings or your physical things to really dedicate yourself to a yogic spiritual life. But very early on, like I said, we had an audio video department. So we were recording his teachings. And the one thing about Swami Satchidananda that was really amazing was the way that he taught was so accessible for people. So when you read his writings or you listen to his talks, he takes these really, really complex yogic teachings that once upon a time were reserved only for a select few. Remember, like, this was gate kept. Like, there was a lot of gatekeeping on yoga for a very, very long time. You were
Yeah.
not allowed to go study yoga. If you wanted to find a master to study yoga with, you had to, like, go, like, sweep the floor in front of his house for 10 years before he deigned to, like, teach you anything.
Mm.
So there was this whole culture of gatekeeping, and then these Western gurus came over and started exploring and, like, teaching yoga to the West. And of course, Westerners just ate it up. We needed it so bad. We were so hungry for what they had to teach. So, so Swami Satchidananda was also, uh, he was so immaculate and, like, well dressed and had
Mm.
such great taste. And was so, like, every movement he made felt like it was graceful and
Mm.
intentional. Um, he was I've since been to India and, of course, met other gurus and other, been to other ashrams, and a lot of the teachers, you look at someone like Ramana Maharshi, and he was, like, kind of very skinny and, like,
Yeah.
just sat in his dhoti and, like, but Swami Satchidananda was very much like a teacher for his times. So he, his clothes were always so beautifully ironed, and um, he just had such, like, his shoes, he would take such good care of his shoes. I remember when he'd take his shoes off and it would just be so lovely set up. And he really started to teach, particularly these young Westerners at the time,
Mm.
not just about yoga, but also, like, how to apply yoga to daily life. Like, how do you use these teachings in your life in a way that is so practical and so applicable to everything you do? So he taught them everything from, like, how to, like, mindfully wash dishes, how to be mindful about sweeping the floors, how to integrate yoga when you're working in your job, how to bring yoga into the way that you answer the phone. So, like, one of the things he would say is, like, we don't answer the phone, "Hey, how can I help you?" or "Hi, what's up?" Like, none of that stuff. Um, he wanted us to answer the phone, "Hello, Satchidananda Ashram, how may we serve you?" It was always like, "How may we serve you?" And he was constantly teaching them uh, this idea of service. I, of course, was fortunate because I went into the yoga school. And so much of his legacy and teachings was really put into us. We were sort of his opportunity to, like, start fresh with humans and see
Yeah.
what would happen with humans, right? In these concepts of yoga. And it's very striking to me when I talk to people from the first generation versus my generation of what their vision is and how they perceive integral yoga and how they perceive integral yoga's role in the world, and even their perception of Swami Satchidananda as a person, as a guru. There is a very big divide, and that divide has become incredibly evident, I would say, especially in the last 5 to 10 years. Certainly since he passed. Like,
Yeah.
we just, like, went crazy different directions of what we saw the vision of this organization being and what we saw the vision of his legacy being. And if you talk to people of my generation, you pretty much hear the same thing from all of us, inclusivity and, like, love. And we're all supposed to be vibrant and these wonderful examples of yoga. And we were meant to be, going out into the world and inspiring people to, have this path, but also have it be really practical in how you utilize it. Um, and I
Mm.
haven't necessarily seen as much of that vision enacted. Um, and also, like, yoga, integral yoga was meant to be shared with everybody. Definitely no gatekeeping of the teachings. He was really about, like, the teachings are there for everyone to have access to. His Yoga Sutras is actually one of the most used Yoga Sutras in teaching um teacher trainings across, like,
Yeah.
the whole world. Like, that's one of the ones that people use default to, because the way he explains the Yoga Sutras is so practical and so easy to understand when you're taking these little lines of these sutras and then he expounds on them. So you really get this feeling like, oh, okay, I get, like, what this ancient Indian text is meaning.
Mm.
So his impact in the world was really pretty amazing, and honestly, like, when you were in his presence, like, you felt you were in the presence of, like, a seriously amazing, wise, enlightened, incredible human being. Like, he was just like, he would walk into the room, and the energy in the room would literally change. I don't know if you've ever been in the presence of somebody who is
Yeah.
famous.
Yeah.
You know, like when a famous person walks into the room and the room starts to get a little like, and everybody, it's almost like everybody's aware they walked into the room and they have this charisma.
Yeah.
He was that on like steroids, like 100 times that. He would walk
Mm.
into a room and his energy would just like go through the whole room. And you could be way in the back of the room. As a matter of fact, I used to actually hang out in the back of the room more because I found his energy was a little intense for me. And so I would, like, prefer to be in the back of the room, and he was so funny because he would always call me forward to the front of the room. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes I was not saying he'd be like he used to call me Bunny. When I was really little, I had these cute little I met him when I was, like, 1, so I had these cute little ponytails, and
Mm.
he thought they looked like bunny ears, so he started calling me Bunny. So he'd be in song, and he'd just be like, the whole, there'd be 150 people in the room, and he'd be like, "Where's Bunny?" Like, the whole thing, Red Sea would split, and I'd be in the back of the room. But he always knew where to find me because I was always in the back of the room. Because being in his energy felt like it felt like almost like not even that somebody was seeing through you, but like almost like all the cells in your body were just like being scanned or like they were see-through, right? And you were
Mm.
just like everything was just like you just became like almost nothing. It's so weird to explain because I mean, obviously, probably some people are like, she sounds like she's crazy right now. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
She sounds like a Looney Tune. But I tell you what, if you want this experience, a lot of people can get this when they go see Amma. So Amma, the hugging saint, when she goes on tour, if you want to feel that experience of what it's like to be in the presence of one of these enlightened beings, if you go sit in the room with Amma, you don't even have to get hugged by her, although the hug is life changing for so many people.
Mm.
But just sitting in the room, you really feel like this energy building up. And like, you'll be in the room and like it'll be like 6 hours later and you'll be like, oh my God, I've been sitting here for 6 hours. Like, what just happened to me? So there is
Mm.
this energy that these teachers carry with them that I use teacher
Mm.
carefully. You're a
Yeah.
teacher. Sometimes I'm a teacher. There are wonderful teachers in the world. These are not teachers. These are
Yeah.
gurus because they hold a wisdom and they tap into this universal intelligence and energy. Um, and they have this energy flowing through them that is so divine. It's what all of us are striving for, right? Like, this is why we teach. This is why we do the work that we're doing, because it looks like, from my viewpoint, to be in that space where Swami Satchidananda or Amma has got to be pretty amazing. Like, I don't know what she does where she can just sit up there and hug people for 20 hours, because I'm telling
Yeah.
you, I couldn't do that for one day, let alone do it for like weeks on end.
Yeah.
So obviously they're tapping into something really greater than the rest of us are tapping into. And it's through the practices and through their teachings that we learn how to tap into that stuff.
Mm.
And so, I'm just talking for myself here because there's some people in the organization that may not agree with me. I
Mm.
believe they're human beings that achieved amazing things. And to me, that is really far more inspirational than thinking they're like gods who are unique and came already enlightened and we can't be anything like them. I kind of feel the same way about Jesus, honestly. I know this might be controversial for some people, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend anyone. But I find Jesus far more inspiring to think that he was a human and he did the things that he did than to think of he was some sort of unique being that I could never even achieve or be like.
Mm.
Because it's in their humanity that I think becomes like the really juicy, yummy stuff. And we're like, oh my gosh, I could be that too. That is so cool.
Mm.
Anyway, I just talked for
Yeah.
like 45 minutes, I think, guys, or I don't
No,
know
no,
how.
no, no. I love no, thank you so much for sharing that. I think um sort of in my own journey, I want to touch on a couple of things like in before we have to head out. So, like, what I really respect about Swami Shivananda, right? Swami Satchidananda's guru. I got told a story when I was at Yogaville. Swami, she wears a wedding ring. I know that. But she taught the meditation. She like co-taught the meditation retreat with Swami Karinananda. I think it's maybe Priyananda. I don't know.
Could have been Priyananda.
But she led like the walking part. She led a hatha class. She was like more active and stuff, but still, I don't know how old she is. But just for the audience to know, like, I don't know, maybe like in her 70s, maybe. And
I was gonna say all like over 70.
yeah, they're all like over 70.
They all seem
And
really timeless, like, you have no idea how old they are, but I think they're all over 70, so.
yeah, exactly. And but she told me a story about of when Swami Satchidananda went to visit Swami Shivananda for one of the first times, and she was kind of just talking about how he was, and Swami Shivananda, he would wear like I forget the name of it, but like the Jewish hat, and then the next day he would be dressed like a Muslim, and then the following day he might be dressed like a Christian like priest, and he would say, "I'm all of them." Um, I just, and like to me that just means like what's important is loving God. What's important is like if I was born in this land like that, like anytime I hear like a different angle of God, like I love it, and I like I identify with the parts of that faith that resonate with me, that resonate as true. And um Swami Satchidananda, like if you haven't looked up a picture of him, like he could have been cast to play actual Jesus Christ in any of the movies that came out, like not these green-eyed guys, but like, like he was like dark-skinned, long flowing hair,
It
and
was beautiful.
he was really truly beautiful. And
It was really, truly
and
beautiful.
I say that all the time because it's like, also what yoga connects and what the Yoga Sutras, why I love the Yoga Sutras so much, and like, we landed on like that. um, some people view Jesus Christ as the Lord or Lord and Savior. Some people view Jesus Christ as prophet, peace be upon him. Some people view him as just like another rabbi that existed during that time. Some people view him as a heretic. Like, it doesn't really matter. But to me, what the message is that like God is in people. Like as in God uses people, or we're a function of him, we're made in his image, like over and over again. That's the image. I mean, that's the message. And Swami Satchidananda would always emphasize like the point of religion is the message. It's sort of like food. It's like, you know, you might like pizza, you might like this type of food, you might like pasta, this person might like salad, but what's the point in eating food? It's to be nourished. It's to also have that food be benefit you. And anyway, so
One of
like
our main teachings is truth is one, paths are many. So that's like one of the core integral yoga teachings that
yes,
came from Swami Satchidananda.
absolutely. And I'll even like touch on Jesus Christ too, is that like when you read more spiritual texts outside of um that area of land that birthed the Abrahamic religions, you see like there are many examples in which like the creator incarnates as a person to remove evil from the earth, or to do like that theme is recurred over and over and over again. And what I learned is like I'm I'm almost done with the Ramayana. It's interesting is that Rama is meant, he later finds out that he's Narayana, or just like God essentially incarnated to remove Ravana, like this immortal demon, from the earth. And what's so beautiful about the story is that he has a twin who's human, like human twin, Lakshmana, like no divine whatever attributes, no reincarnate of some god. And he has all of the same capacities as Rama. When Rama's given a gift, Lakshmana's given the gift. And
Mhm.
the only reason Lakshmana doesn't even try to attack Ravana is because he says it's not my duty, not because I'm not capable. And to me, that's the texture that yoga brings to the table, where it goes, this person, Jesus Christ, or the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, or any of the other prophets, like, um, their relation, and even when you study their lives, it's like their relationship with God is very much like unsuspected. You wouldn't really like, they seem like, why that person? Why would you choose that? Whatever. and it's meant to be an empowering position, whereas, like, when I purify my heart, my little heart, I can be like that too, and you don't know it. Like, the point isn't to know that you're there, and that's another thing about Rama and even controversial Jesus Christ, and I'm watching a lot of these debates where it's like when
Mhm.
he had the perfect opportunity many times to say directly to people like, "Praise me specifically, this flesh being right here," but when he was asked, he always said, "Praise God," like, "Love God, love God." He always pointed to the laws and things like that. So I think Swami Satchidananda did the same. I think that like I want to do the same. I think you want to do the same, or just in general, where it's like it's not about us, it's about the teachings themselves and the nourishment that comes from sort of absorbing that point of view into your mental space. So
Yeah, and I think the reason why we follow these people is just because they are examples of how to do that. And they somehow are a little bit further along the path than we are. And they have a little bit of knowledge that we can share. And I
mm,
think that's true of all of us. Like, all of us are a little further along the path than somebody.
yeah.
Right? And further along the path, I don't mean that's like, it doesn't mean we're not all gonna get there. It doesn't mean I'm better than you. It just
mm,
means I've been doing this a little bit longer, so maybe I have a little bit more wisdom that I can share with you, and I think that's what yoga
mm,
teachers can do, right? Yoga teachers went in and they studied yoga, and now they're a little further along the path, and they're gonna give you this guidance. But again, yoga is such a practical path. It
mm,
is not meant to be something that is just done on Sundays or Fridays
yeah.
or
Yeah.
1 day a week, 1 hour a day. It is meant to be something that's integrated into your entire life. It's much more of a lifestyle.
Mm,
Also, we call it a science because, again, you do the same thing over and over again. It can be repeated and proved that it
mm,
works. And so, looking at yoga as like ways to integrate it, and I would encourage you, like, even if you're going to a yoga class, find ways that you can take some version of those poses and not just do them on the day that you go to the yoga class, but see what happens if you start to integrate them into your daily life all the time, because that is where the power of yoga is. And that's what I feel like Swami Satchidananda taught so well, that he was very adamant that yoga is not something you do. Just that's why we have in integral yoga, we have all the different branches like japa yoga, yana yoga, karma yoga, because he said yoga is not just something you do on a mat or in a class or 1 day a week. Is something that gets integrated into everything. So try a little breath, try a little chanting, whatever you love, your favorite part of your yoga class, whether it's a pose, try an alternative of the pose. Just see what it feels like to do that at home, because it is not meant to be just done at a class. It is meant to be integrated into every single moment of your day.
yeah. And if you've been in class, and there's a reason why a lot of us continue to go to classes, is because there's this sweetness that's only present in classes. Like, it's that peace of mind. It's this science of peace of mind. Essentially, what are the tools you can use at any time to regulate the system, in any language you want to use, and the Yoga Sutras, which I would say is like the text that I try to point to, that and Light on Yoga when it comes to me as a teacher, is so just book 2, verse 1 is yoga in action is accepting pain as means for purification, study of spiritual books, and surrender to the divine or surrender to the supreme being.
Yeah.
And at any given time, you can do any of those things. We have a phone now. You can pull out your phone and just read something enlightening rather than see something that's downgrading. So, anyways, um,
Yeah, and
there's
class
like,
is great. Don't think I don't want you guys to go to class. Go to class, because gives you that taste of what
yeah,
ultimately you can carry with you throughout your entire life. So
right,
don't think you can only get it in the classroom. The classroom
mm,
is just meant to give you a taste, and then if you keep practicing and keep going deeper, then you can carry that feeling with you everywhere you go and everything you do.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's true.
True.
Um, Anything else?
No, I think this was a short episode for us today. We only had a little bit of time, but I think it was a great way to just like integrate in something we kind of wanted to talk about, but didn't need to be a whole full episode,
Yeah,
just to touch on and give you kind of background. Cause I think really originally we said we were going to come back and do this episode. And so
yeah.
I'm glad you circled back around because I'd totally forgotten about it.
Yeah, and it's our 20th episode, nice little milestone. Thank you so much for rocking with us. Our
Yeah.
subscribers, we're slowly building them up, our hours, and, just thank you so much for being with us on this journey, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Have a beautiful, beautiful week till we see you next. Om
Peace
Om.
out.